Welcome to the SSK Cyber Club. SSK stands for Smarter, Safer, and Kinder Online, and we started this club to talk about big issues and build community around this incredibly important topic. I'm your host, Paige. I have 6 seasons of experience working with youth in both educational and recreational settings, and now I work in the tech industry for a Kamloops-based software development company. This episode of SSK is being sponsored by Kermode Education. Kermode is perfect for educators and parents who want to help their kids be better digital citizens. By using cutting-edge software, Kermode helps users evaluate online content, build media and digital literacy skills, and really start to think critically about all the information they consume online. This episode is being recorded and will be available on the Kermode Education YouTube page. Today, we are joined by Sean Campbell, and Sean is a publishing industry veteran who's been working in edtech for over 15 years. We're going to be discussing the differences between media literacy, and digital citizenship, and then we'll get into some current events. So welcome, Sean.
Hey, Paige, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, excellent. I see it looks like beautiful where you're at.
It is very lovely and sunny, and I brought my palm tree out just to really up the vibes.
Excellent. Dusted it off after a long winter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. It's digital citizenship is something that I really do nerd out about. I love talking about it, and it's really exciting to talk to you and everyone who works with Kermode and just the people who have come to learn more about media literacy, and digital citizenship. And I know Kermode set up and sponsors this show so that they can really support the educators and the parents and the public libraries that subscribe to their software. But really, this would help anyone who stumbles upon this to really get into these topics and start to be a more well-informed digital citizen and help their community and their family be better digital citizens as well. And so just before I launch in, I kind of want to take that pressure off everybody at home watching is what I hear most of all when I do these presentations is, hey, Sean, I know this is really important. I know it has a huge effect on people's self-esteem and their mental health and their worldview, but I don't know where to start. I'm not an expert, and so how am I supposed to help someone else? And so just so you know, no one's really an expert. You know, even the people who tell you they are, they're not. And the reason is because our digital world changes so quickly, right? It's rapidly changing. It's incredibly complex. We're still humans, even though it's a digital world, we're still humans interacting with each other on there. So there's tons of human emotion that come into the mix as well, which just makes it very complicated. And so even if you don't know anything, the fact that you're here and that you're using a tool like Kermode, and you're even thinking about working on digital citizenship with your family, that's the first step, and that's absolutely gonna make you a better digital citizen. So bravo, and thanks for tuning in. So what we really want to do here is we're not here to give you a ton of answers, because what happens is there's not a lot of answers. There's a lot of gray area out there. What we really want to do is understand what's important. And we want to start asking really good questions because that's the skill we want to build and apply to everything that we encounter online. And that's what's going to make us smarter, safer, and kinder digital citizens. And not to sound too grandiose, and I do this all the time, but I really do think that when we start to apply ourselves to this and we start to talk about it and work on it, we're going to be happier people. We're going to have better, more empathetic communities and therefore a better world. So we spend so much time online and it just has that huge effect on us that the more we can talk about it, the more we can build these questioning skills. That's what's going to make us a better digital citizen. So to lead us off on this show, I'm going to talk a little bit about media literacy, and digital citizenship, and the differences between them, because I think we hear those terms all the time, and it sounds kind of familiar, but we can't really wrap our head around what they are. And really, they are large they're big ideas and they cover a lot of ground, but I'm going to try to simplify it a bit today to make it a little bit more consumable. And obviously our chat is open. If anybody wants to ask questions as we go, please do hop on there and write in any questions you do have. So to start us off, we're going to talk about media literacy. So media literacy is a skill that helps you evaluate and think critically about the information you consume and the media that you create. And we are just absolutely bombarded by information these days, right? We are glued to our phones. I've got mine within arm's reach, as do everyone at all times. And just to illustrate that point, I always say, what is the amount of time between you waking up and you grabbing your phone? And so for most people, you think, oh, you embrace your loved one, or you take a second and you enjoy that, cup of Arabian fair trade coffee. But no, you don't. You roll over and you grab your phone and you mainline that information superhighway the second you're awake to see what you missed. And that's not a bad thing. And I'm not judging, because I do the exact same thing. But it does illustrate how I don't know if addicted is the right word, but how immersed we are in this information world, and how bad we need it, how bad we crave it. And so media literacy really is this information piece. And it's saying that when we see these things online, when we see it on social media, when we see it on a news aggregator, when we Google something to find something out, we need to start asking ourselves questions like, where did this information come from? Who created this? Has this been peer reviewed? When was it created? Timeliness is really important for a lot of the subjects that we're thinking about. And is there any potential for bias from the content creator, right? And so if you're not asking yourself these questions, you're just consuming and moving on with your life, you're not going to be a well-informed digital citizen or just citizen, period, right? And we know that affects the way people vote. It affects the way we interact with one another. Confirmation bias is something we'll talk about on another show, but we really do glom onto those things that we think are already true and disregard things that we aren't. And that's not a great recipe for growth or empathy or anything. And so media literacy is absolutely key. And I think we hear about it all the time. It's in our face, right? Fake news. Politicians say this, news radio says that. It's very present in our lives. And so in one way, that's really good, because it's going to be really easy to explore this with our kids and our students. So you can take a current event and you can say, okay, well, what do you know about this? Where did you find that out? And you can actually look at that article or that video or where they saw it on social media and start to look at it and start to ask those questions. Who created this? Where did this come from? Is this valid? Are there any sources that are linked with the information that they're providing? And so that's a really important conversation for you to have, and that's a really important skill for you to build, because once you start to build that foundational skill of questioning, it becomes a habit. And so now, even though you're not talking to your parents or your teacher, or you're using the Komodo app, you are still applying it to what you see on YouTube and what you see on TikTok. And that's the meat, right? That's the power of that skill. And so those type of questioning skills are going to serve you today, tomorrow, and then also 5 years, 10 years down the line, when the internet's completely different. You'll still have those foundational, who authored this, who created this skills, which is just incredibly, incredibly important. Next up is digital literacy. So digital literacy is a skill that helps you understand all the tools you use online and how they work. So think of this more as where media literacy was that information piece, and digital literacy really is the tools, the mechanics of how this online digital world works. And so you can think of things like Google. So Google is a huge part of all of our lives now, and it's really simple to use, and it works really well, and it's free. So the company's worth $1 trillion, but I feel like I've never given them a dime. Right? So understanding how these tools work, when its simplicity almost belies its power. And so if you go onto google.com right now, you'll see Google and then a search bar, and that's it, right? Like that is as simple as it possibly gets. And still, when I write in something, it says, "Hey, Sean, you were looking for something about misinformation. Here's 500 million, or I found 500 million articles. Here's 10." And so we don't really unpack that. We don't think, okay, well, that's some major filtering going on. Why these 10 sites? We need to understand how that tool works, how they make money, what part of the information they're delivering to me is organic, what part of this is advertising, who can pay to get on this page. And so I'm not going to get into the mechanics of Google, because whatever I tell you now could be wrong in a year or in a month. And so what I really want you guys to do out there is to say, okay, I don't really know how Google works, or Wikipedia, or Reddit, or Gmail, or all of these tools, TikTok, Facebook, on and on. And it's more about that, okay, I know that I need to ask some questions about this though. Like, I need to understand the algorithms. I need to understand how they make money. I need to understand how they filter the information that I see. I need to understand, ask questions about, when I put content on here, who owns that? It's really just understanding that digital literacy piece makes you such a stronger digital citizen when you understand these powerful tools. And there's things about selling and storing and collecting your personal information that are really important. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't use it, because they take that data from you and potentially sell it. But you're in a much more powerful position if you understand what they take, and whether you accept that. And I think about that with your smartphone, right? Every time you download an app, it says, "Hey, we need access to your photos and your contact list and your whereabouts at all times, and your credit card number." And you're just looking at that like, oh man, I thought this was like a filter app where I could be a cat in all my photos. You think it's something simple, but they're really asking for a lot, and usually we just click yes because we don't care. And that's your choice, but make sure it's your choice, right? Make sure we're well informed when we make these decisions, and that's a huge part of digital literacy. And then finally, for these three big areas, these big content areas, there's digital citizenship. And to me, digital citizenship is really an umbrella term. So it includes media literacy, and it includes digital literacy. But then it goes on, and it's really the big compassion piece to me, the piece where how do we interact with one another? How do we interact with these powerful tools? How do we interact with all this information? How does it affect us emotionally and socially? How can we show more empathy and support for each other? How can we enhance all the good that the internet has for us, and really limit the bad, right? Because the internet is amazing. I'm not here to hate on it. I think it's fantastic. It saves us time. It brings us so much laughter and joy and connection with people that we may not stay connected with otherwise. But as we're all aware, there's some negatives out there too, right? If you've ever had the misfortune to click on the comment section of any website on the internet, people are pretty fired up in there, and it's about a hockey team or something. Like, people are fired up, and it's not a positive place, right? And so, as a strong digital citizen, it's really, there's some tremendous benefits, and how can we harness that good? How can we start to say, okay, I'm passionate about this, or I can advocate for this, or I can stick up for this kid who's being bullied, or someone who's bullying, to actually realize they're bullying, right? That's a real world social connection that we can make to make the world a better place. And that's really what digital citizenship is to me. It's that connection between humans, even though it's a digital world. It really is that connection, how we interact with one another and bring value and positivity to all different parts of our life, online and off. So I know, Paige, that's a lot. I laid a lot on everybody, and it's really complex. But what I really wanted for everyone was just a little bit of an overview, so that you can start from a place of knowledge and start to talk to your kids about this. And it can be as simple as starting with, hey, what does digital citizenship mean to you? Like, start to find out about your kids or your family's digital life. And that's a great launching point, so that if you have big questions, or if you don't know what media literacy is, maybe you go online to find the answer, which which most of us would do. And then if you have access to the Commodity app, it actually analyzes that page. And it'll analyze that website and give you some information feedback so that you're better able to evaluate it. And so it's like that nice cyclical feel where you have questions and you go online to check them. And then with that Commodity app, you have more opportunities to engage with different parts of media literacy, which brings you back to more questions, which brings you back to the internet. So it really is a powerful tool to help, but the most powerful tool is really just you talking to your family about this and engaging about things you may or may not know much about.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, that was definitely a lot of information, but very, very rich. And as you were going through, digital literacy and media literacy and how can we be more literate in these areas of our lives, I, as someone in tech, was even like kind of checking off, like, yeah, I feel pretty good about that. Yeah, I don't know. The Google algorithm, I don't know if anybody can keep up with that.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? Because it's so easy to just not think about it because they really are incredible tools. Like I'm the same way, except you have to really remind yourself. Like you're set more on like, oh, this is awesome, and I move on because they're that easy to use. But yeah, it really is important at some point to kind of think about, okay, my phone knows everything about me. It's actually, you could argue that your phone knows more about you than any person that you've known your whole life or a very close loved one, right? It has your credit card info. It's got your position at all time, your search history, right? Like it's incredible when you stop and think, which I think is like really the overarching theme of this is just stop and think and talk about it. And that's a huge first step to being a better digital citizen for sure.
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing that up to us. And I really resonate with what you were saying about digital citizenship and talking about that with, especially with our youth, but with everybody in our lives really, and talking about what that means, because I think a lot of people kind of disassociate their digital presence a little bit from their real life presence and their persona. And I think you see that in the comments section, right? People can be ruthless, and we all know most people wouldn't say anything like that in real life, but when you're online, you're kind of behind a wall of anonymousness.
Yes, anonymity.
Anonymity.
I hear ya.
That's a tough one, yeah. But yeah, so I think there's no better time than when our kids and our students the young people in our lives are starting to form their digital online presence and their citizenship, and just reminding them, yeah, how can you be a great digital citizen just like you're a great real life citizen? So that's great.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because a lot of adults I talk to are very worried about the digital world for everyone else. Like, I know what I'm doing. Like, I'm fine with me online, but I'm really worried about all those idiots out there, or I'm worried about my kids who aren't. And then what we often find is that as they work with their kids, they're learning a ton, right? Like it's not always everyone else. Like, we all have things that we can build on and skills that we can improve online for sure. I don't think there's a human on earth that can't improve somewhere, whether that's evaluating information online. I think the latest stat I saw was like, what was it? I think it was 89% of people admitted to falling for fake news in the last couple of years. And so it's got to be 100%, right? Like, there's got to be at least 10% of people who just deny it altogether. Like, it happens to the best of us. And so just taking that time to think is really important.
For sure. Think and ask questions. And I, just on that note as well, like, I'm sure one question that I feel like all parents these days ask themselves, and maybe ask other parents, is, when do I give my child a phone? When do I give them this tool to become a digital citizen and go out into the digital world?
For sure. And I hear that all the time. And just like everything else in this, it's not a succinct answer, unfortunately. Sorry, parents out there. But yeah, it's never a specific age, really. Like, I think parents want to have like a bit of a range because they see kids at school getting phones and they're not sure. And obviously it depends on your child. Every child, every family situation is different. I've seen really young kids with cell phones, but it was like a single parent and the phone had no data. You know, like I'm kind of, it's a completely different situation than just giving a child a smartphone with unlimited data and no type of parental checks on it at all. And what I'd like to see, and I think that the conversation is really changing from what age do I give my child a cell phone to how do I prepare my child for this very complex digital world that I'm about to unleash for them? Because kids might have that phone for an emergency. You know, I need a pickup, or, you know, dance class is over or hockey's over. But really, if they have access to data, they're going to be on some type of social media, or they're going to be, you know, even WhatsApp or something, right? There's going to be some type of social communication thing. And I know a lot of those sites say you have to be 14 or what have you, but there's a million ways around that, really, right? If someone wants to get on there, they can. And it's so exciting, right? Like I think everyone has some sort of, not everyone, I should say that. There's lots of people who don't, but there's a lot of us who have some type of social presence, because it can be quite rewarding, right? Like you want to share photos of your family with your other family, or you want to share your music or your art or what have you, right? And it's a very easy, fun way to do that and get feedback from people that you know, and people from all over the world. And so that's all great stuff, and I love it. There are some pitfalls, especially for little kids, right? And I think so often we're just like, oh, I don't know anything about it, so I'm just going to give them the cell phone, you know, or they're too young to really figure out some of this big idea stuff like bullying and, I don't know, sexting, you know, like that's too old, that's too much for my kid. And really, no one has ever said, hey, you're too young to learn the rules of the road, here's the keys to the car. But we kind of do that with cell phones all the time. We don't prepare anyone for anything. We just say, here you go. And we know the effects that digital world can have on our kids if they're not prepared for it. And I think it's not age, it's more how do we get them ramped up so they're prepared for what some of the things that they're going to encounter. And again, I know Kermode's paying the bills for this. So just to give them another shout out, like they do have a structure. They have a user guide for parents that really does walk them through some of the things they can talk to their kids about. But there are other resources out there as well. Like Media Smarts is amazing. Common Sense Media is a fantastic website, and they just have lessons and things that you can start to really prepare your kids along with Kermode as well. And then Kermode has the extra app on top of that, which is really cool. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, Paige.
Yeah, totally. And thank you for the resources, because yeah, I know that a lot of parents will be hoping for resources so that they aren't just throwing the keys at their kids without knowing the rules of the road. So that's great. And yeah, of course, there are some things that can be kind of scary that we want to, protect our kids from, for sure. But like you said, like the internet can be really awesome. There are some really like wonderful, positive things out there. What is something positive about the internet that you're kind of like jazzed up about right now?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much. Like when I first was getting onto social media, or maybe not first when I got on there, but I love traveling. I've traveled to a bunch of countries, and it was such a great way to stay in touch with people that you never would have otherwise. Like if it was just their email address or something, you would never use it and you'd completely lose touch. Whereas if they kind of chimed in, on Facebook or somewhere with some pictures of another trip they're on, you can send them a comment. I just found it was such an amazing way to stay in touch with people that you really liked, but maybe you just hung out with them for a week, in London or something. And this way you actually still had a bit of a connection where if they came to Canada, where I'm at. Okay. So this is part of digital literacy as well, I guess. Media literacy. So who wouldn't trust a face like this?
Oh, hey, partner.
Say hi? No. See the dangers of social media. All right, Jenny, go Simon. But yeah, I always thought that was such an amazing piece where if they were ever in Canada, I really would want them to look me up. Whereas if you hadn't really heard or seen from them in 10 years, you'd probably avoid their call, right?
For
So it was such an amazing tool to really connect with people who were amazing. You just weren't in the same sphere. And then my other one is really, it's Upworthy. I think everyone knows about Upworthy. This isn't like a big surprise to anyone, but I just kind of got onto it a couple months ago, and I swear I ugly cry once a day for things that they post. It's great, right? Like there's so many things about gratitude and like helping people, and I think we've all seen those research that where it's like if the more you give, the happier you are. And you just get caught up in work and family and money and on. And I do too. It's just an amazing reminder, daily reminder about like where you find real joy in life is in like telling people you love them and, you know, really valuing those people in your life that are amazing and really giving of yourself. Yeah. Anything for you? Any big things that you jump on online that you find really positive?
You know what? On Instagram, I follow Tank's Good News, and he only posts good news stories. And same thing, it always makes me tear up and makes me feel all warm and fuzzy.
Yeah.
That's definitely one account where you just every time you see him on your feed, you just know you're gonna feel something good. And I love that because it's very easy to feel saturated in not good news. So having something like that to just break up whatever's going on, have a little piece of good news in there is a game changer for sure.
Yeah, just even some perspective, eh? Sometimes you were having a terrible day and it's because something was late. You know, you didn't get a package you thought you were gonna get, or you know, you have to change the tires and you're running out of time. It's like, and then you see a story about someone who's from a war-torn area or who lost someone they love, and someone's, you know, building them up or starting something to help them out, and you're just like, oh, amazing, my day's fine, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Life is good. Yeah, not all so bad. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Sean. This was very, very helpful, very informative, and I'm excited to see where this goes and some more topics and helpful little tidbits that we can cover together.
Yeah, thanks so much for hosting. That was awesome. I had a blast, and yeah, I think we're doing this monthly. So yeah, I can't wait. You've been fabulous so far, and it's been lots of fun. So thank you so much for having me.
Great, thanks, Sean.
Bye, everybody.
Okay, well, that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in and for going back and watching this later. Like Sean said, we will be doing this monthly, so make sure to join us for our next SSK Cyber Club on Wednesday, April 13th at 7 p.m. EST or 4 p.m. PST. And be sure to subscribe to Cromody YouTube channel to keep up to date with our show and all the awesome updates from our friends over at Cromody Education. And if you would like more information on Cromody and how it can help those in your family, your school, or your public library become smarter, safer, and kinder digital citizens, contact their amazing team at info@cromodyeducation.com or visit cromodyeducation.com on the web. So thank you so much again for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.